Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to have so much fun because we're going to be talking about that word that everybody goes, ew, at, and that's sales. You know, we all think, ugh, sales. But seriously, folks, if we don't excel in sales and in that process, our business will not succeed. And so we're going to be talking with my guest today about how to truly be successful at this. So please join me in welcoming Shawn Rhodes to our program today. Welcome, Shawn.
Thanks, Deb. Pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, let me tell people a little bit about you and then we will dive into this. So Shawn Rhodes leveraged his former life as a war correspondent to become an international expert in how the best teams continuously improve pipelines and performance. He's a Tampa-based TEDx speaker, and his work studying teams in more than 24 countries, some of the most dangerous places on the planet, has been published in news outlets including Time, CNN, NBC, Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and Inc. His clients have included the small guys, including Deloitte, ConAgra, Coca-Cola, and dozens of similar businesses. Shawn is also a nationally syndicated columnist with the business journals and author of the books Pivot Point, Turn on a Dime Without Sacrificing Results, Universal Export, a guide for overachievers in working less and enjoying more, and his newest book, Bulletproof Selling, Systemizing Sales for the Battlefield of Business. So again, Shawn, welcome.
It's my pleasure, Deb. And I know we're going to have a good chat today because if you see sales similarly as I do, then it's something that you and I both know might be the cause of why most small businesses don't succeed. But once you get a handle on it, you start having fun in it, it can make business a whole lot more enjoyable.
Right. You know, and we'll delve into this a lot because obviously this is the point of the conversation, but I always like to find out from my guests how they got to where they are today, especially because you took a very different route. So tell us about how you got to where you are today and how you discovered that for now, this is your passion in life.
So I actually started off with the weird job of being sent around the world by the US military to study people that were accomplishing the impossible.
Oh, okay.
And so I'll give you an example of this. We would send 50 US men and women, service members, into a building in the middle of combat, and they didn't expect but half of them to walk back out under their own power. Oh, because that's the fatality rate in urban combat. And so I was sent multiple combat tours to embed with these troops as a U.S. Marine, had to go through Paris Island and all the training that they put Marines through. We had a rifle and a camera. Wow. And I would study these men and women that were able to do what nobody thought was achievable, which is if we send 50 people in and 50 people walk back out, how did that happen? Right. And I realized it was because they were not the most brilliant people in the world. I mean, they were smart, but they're not, you know, Harvard MBA Mensa members. It's because they were actually trained in great systems, systems that were updated constantly, systems that were not static, that didn't, you know, they weren't created 50 years ago when Deming created the management structure and then all of a sudden we're expected to run our businesses like this. No, these things were active and dynamic, and that allowed them to stay alive on the battlefield. And we began to realize, hey, this is really applicable in the world of business as well. And so for the last decade, I've been passing that knowledge on in operations and businesses. But I'll tell you that the very first thing that people really come to me with when they come to me for business improvement is not operational efficiency, because that's consultant speak. No one quite understands what that's about. And I don't even either, which is great because it doesn't really apply to a lot of people. to your listeners, I'd say
Mhm.
it's how do we get more dollars in the door so
Right.
that we can keep the lights on,
Mhm.
we can have more of an impact and create the lifestyle that we got
Mhm.
into business to achieve.
Mhm.
And so when I really began focusing on how do we take the same systems that keep men and women successful on the
Mhm.
battlefield and apply them into business, not
Mhm.
only did it unlock sales in my own company, but
Mhm.
it allowed me to be able to walk into an organization and say, hey, hope does not have to be part of your sales strategy
Mhm.
anymore. And I believe in that term so strongly, we actually put it on the inside cover
Mhm.
of the book. For those of us
Right.
catching this on YouTube, it
Mhm.
says, hope is not a sales strategy.
Mhm.
And that's the passion that I have for business and for life
Mhm.
now, is to help people remove hope, replace it with
Mhm.
certainty, replace it with systems so that you can be more present, so
Mhm.
that you can deliver more value in your
Mhm.
conversations and through the products and services that you sell.
Right. Right. You know, and you mentioned hope, and when I was reading part of your book, you know, I really did realize that so many people go at this with that philosophy. I hope I'll meet the right person. I hope they'll return my email. I hope they'll return my phone call. I hope, I hope, I hope. And of course, here in the South, it's we hope and pray, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, you know, it really is this hope method. And sure, you know, we have to have that, but having a system in place alleviates all of that, because you know, and of course this is the fundamental thing with the military. You do A, then you do B, then you do C, then you do D,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, and you don't do A, J, K. I mean, you know, because that
Right.
doesn't work. And in the military, that would get you killed. You know,
Right.
and so, you know, in your business, if you don't have that system, it can mean that your business doesn't succeed. So, you know, that, and I'll be honest, I quite often fall into that hope category. So that was why I was, you know, I'm so looking forward to talking with you.
Absolutely. And the funny thing about the greatest writers around the topic of small business, you know,
Mm-hmm.
thinking Michael Gerber with E-Myth,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm thinking, you know, you go to Stephen Covey, you go to all the people that we really turn to
Mm-hmm.
for great advice and wisdom in business,
Mm-hmm.
they all talk about systems.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it's something that so many of us gloss over because we think to ourselves, oh, yeah, I'll get around to getting a system
Mm-hmm.
in place for that one day, but I really need dollars in the door.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a really great story of Abraham Lincoln. I'm not sure if it's true, but it's attributed to him, where he
Mm-hmm.
said, if you give me 4 hours to cut down a tree, I'm going to spend 3 of those hours sharpening my axe.
Mm-hmm.
That's what building a system allows you
Right.
to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you get those steps in place ahead of time, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to hope I remember who to reach out to. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have to hope I remember what questions to ask that
Mm-hmm.
man or woman. I don't have to hope I remember to then follow up with them.
Mm-hmm.
I let systems handle that for me. And
Mm-hmm.
we can walk into how do we do all of those things
Mm-hmm.
on the show if you'd like, but let systems handle that so that when
Mm-hmm.
you're in the conversation, you can be completely present.
Right.
Because the danger, the other side of that coin, if you don't have systems in place,
Mm-hmm.
is you'll be thinking to yourself, not only what do I need to do to interact with this
Mm-hmm.
other human on the end of the line or face to face in a
Mm-hmm.
meeting now, but gosh, I've got all these other things I've got to
Mm-hmm.
manage as well. Am I asking the right questions?
Mm-hmm.
Am I gathering the right information? Am I following up? Am I owning the
Mm-hmm.
next step of the conversation? All of that flies out the window often
Mm-hmm.
for most entrepreneurs and business owners because we do not have the mechanisms
Mm-hmm.
in place for those things to handle
Right.
themselves. So that's my mission in life now, is
Mm-hmm.
to help organizations remove hope from their sales
Mm-hmm.
strategy by let's
Right.
get some good systems in place, and you
Mm-hmm.
can build them for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that people often confuse about, you know, transferring military process into
Mm-hmm.
business is that I've got to take somebody else's process
Mm-hmm.
and try to shoehorn, you know, my
Mm-hmm.
passion and my way of doing things. No,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, no. Make it your way of doing
Right.
things. Just make it consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And I can share with you, you know, the way I almost lost my house and my entire business by
Mm-hmm.
not doing that. But if you don't do something consistently,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have no way to go back and
Mm-hmm.
improve it.
Right. Yeah. You know, we tell people from a marketing perspective, you need to have goals, because how do you measure what you've done if you don't have your goals? You know, maybe that's, you know, you sell 10% more widgets, or, you know, all these
Mm-hmm.
various things. And it's the same thing. I mean, you know, you have to have all of these things in place in order to be successful. And for many business owners, especially those who are just starting out, they're thinking, okay, I've got this great thing that I do, you know, product or service. And, you know, and oh my gosh, I'm also having to worry about billing. I'm having to worry about hiring, especially, you know, if you're starting out. They've got so many things going on in their heads that that's why so many small businesses fail, because they lose track. It's like they're juggling. They've never juggled before, and they've been thrown 10 balls, right? And they're going, pretty soon, they get hit in the
chainsaw.
head.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The chainsaw. That's the tricky part. And so they lose a limb, and they think, well, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. And of course, what happens is the systems, whether it's sales, whether it's business, whether it's marketing, whatever it is, that's what allows you to juggle, because you still have all of those things. Now, of course, one of the
they don't go away.
Right. Now you can, if you're doing this really well, you learn to toss those balls to somebody else. There's this whole delegation thing, right?
In order to do that, Deb, guess what you have to have?
A system. Right. Yeah. You can't just all of a sudden say, here, great example is my producer. I didn't used to have a producer. I did everything myself, partially because that way I knew it would get done right. Right. I bet you never hear that.
You wanted it done. Sure.
Yep. Because my way is the only way. And so, but I finally figured out, okay, this is not a good use of my time and resources. And so I did hire a couple people, didn't work out because I didn't have a system. I just kind of said, here, go do. And then, of course, I was disappointed when they didn't do the way that I wanted it to. They were fabulous people, but I didn't give them direction. So when I actually sat down, wrote out a job description, went through the process of interviewing, all of these various things, I found my lovely producer, Kim. We've been doing this 3.5 years at least. But she knows what my expectations are. And here's the process that we go through. So, the system that we do. But most importantly, then I tell her, tweak it, make it yours. As you said, make it yours, do what works for you. And, as long as we're still getting to the same end point, that was what was really important.
Oh, yeah. And that tweaking can actually allow you to spin laps around your competition. And so if you want to put a pin in that one, because that's really important that we circle back to, but you mentioned outsourcing and systems. So this is something that a lot of small business owners make mistakes with. I made this critical error because I'm reading books by Timothy Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week, get out of, get a VA, offshore it, get it cheap, let that person handle all the things. And people are even willing to do this with salespeople. So a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the experts space, I'm doing air quotes for the people tuning in on the podcast, the expert space, they want to go get somebody to sell for them because they don't like selling.
Right.
So they say, then I hear this all the time, Shawn, I need an inside sales rep. I need somebody to get on the phone. I need somebody to, be my salesperson, hopefully for straight commission, right? So I don't have to pay them anything.
Right.
Well, and that's a whole nother conversation.
That'll motivate
really
them to do well, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So the danger in outsourcing before you've built a system is that assuming that person is successful, that function, that task will now be hamstrung to that person.
Right.
And large businesses make this mistake all the time with their salespeople that are basically cowboys and cowgirls. They never enter anything into a CRM. They've got all the client files in their heads.
It's all in their head.
You can't fire those salespeople, right? Because they'll take that business with them, even with non-competes in place. And so for an entrepreneur, for a small business owner, before you offshore or outsource anything, make sure that you can do it well first, so that if you ever have to pull that function back in, like if another pandemic happens, I mean, God forbid, but we don't know.
Right.
If you ever have to pull that back in, you need to make sure you can at least perform that to a minimally viable level.
Right.
So build a system. And then the second benefit to having a system is now you can turn that over to the person that you do hire and say, step by step, here's how you do this thing. And what I began doing in my own business, because I love outsourcing anything I possibly can, just like you, Deb, I began building video training. So for any of the things that I do throughout the week, and you can do this with Zoom, I mean, super cheap, right?
Right.
Anything I do throughout the week, I ask myself, is this a recurring task? Whether it happens every day, every week, every month, or every year. And if it is, I don't want to have to recreate the wheel.
Right.
So I'll build a written system for it. If I know I'm going to outsource it and it's technical, I need to, help navigate somebody through a website or something like that. Then I'll build training where I'm just doing a screen share and walking them through it. But I probably have 70 or 80 of these videos for my business at this point. And that way, when I do hire somebody, I can just say, here's the administrative roles for your duty. Here's what your expectations are. Here's how to go do it. Literally the training that now I don't have to sit handhold them for weeks on end and take time away from my clients. The training's already built. So I would advise anybody, no matter where you are in your business, you're a day in or you're 100 years in, begin building those systems now if you haven't already.
Right.
And that way you can, and then, to that pin in the note that we said, you can actually ask your people to help you improve those systems.
Right.
But if they're not operating from a baseline, they're throwing darts at the wall. And if one of them hits a target, you'd like, hey, I'd like more of that, but boss, I don't know what I did to get the target to hit the dart and the dart to hit the I have no idea, right? Because you're not doing anything consistently that you can then backtrack, forensically open up and say, all right, here are the steps you went through. What could we do? What's redundant? What could we improve? All those things can now be had inside of a system.
Right. You just reminded me of a time many years ago when I worked for a company that designed computer software. And this was a long time ago. I mean, and the systems were huge and all of these various things. And we were designing for the government. We were designing software for Navy and for NASA. And now I am not a computer programmer. Don't even come close. And of course, that was, this is, back when you were using, a lot of we didn't even have websites. I mean, we FTP'd things to them and all of this.
Yeah.
But because I was not the technical person, when it was finished, they would give it to me and they would say, break it. And of course, I would break it. But the problem was I didn't write down the steps that I had done to break it. And so we couldn't replicate it. And, and so we knew that it had bugs, but we didn't know how we got there. And the same thing is true with sales. You need to know what works and what didn't work. And that's where keeping notes, writing things down. And, and let's be honest, especially now I'm quite a bit older than you. I have learned I have to be more detailed in my notes because I will look at it and go, what do you suppose I meant?
Right?
and so, it does.
About?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I've got a reminder here that I'm to call Bob. Well, who's Bob and how am I getting a hold of him? Things like that. And, so not only are we dealing with, our own foils but it is, like you said, we need to be able to have someone else do it. So even if you're the one person shop, hopefully at some point you're not. So if you have written it down or videoed it, whatever it is in detail, then it's much easier for someone else to pick up that process, follow it, tweak it, go, hey, what if we did it this way instead? Which means you have to empower them. I mentioned, that I didn't want to, I didn't want to turn things over because my way is the right way and the only way. Well, get over that, folks. And so, when we empower those who are working with us to say, here's a different way that we might consider doing this. That's where it really works, and the system takes over.
And for the folks that are just getting their feet wet in sales, or you're in sales because you're an entrepreneur and you've been in the business a little while, but you want more sales, often what we're looking for is somebody to be able to tell us, to your point, I wrote this note down about Bob. Who is Bob? What is Bob's phone number? What am I supposed to talk to Bob about? I just have a note to call Bob. Well, there is someone that can do that for you, and they are willing to take you on as a client, no matter where you are in the world or what language you speak, or how much money you think you may or may not have in your business. I'm going to connect you with this lovely individual right now. It's called a CRM, and that stands for Customer Relationship Management Platform. Now you can get these things for free, or you can pay $100,000 a month for them if you have
Depends on what you need.
The whole scale, right? But what a CRM allows you to do is an infinite amount of people can fit in this thing. So I could say, Deb is one of my prospects. I'd love for her to buy my widget. I spoke with her 3 months ago. Well, 3 months ago, when I had that first conversation, I can write down in my CRM, which is basically an electronic notebook. I talked to Deb. Here's Deb's phone number. Here's her email address. Here's what we talked about. She told me she was interested in getting this information from me, but she wasn't going to be ready to buy for another 3 months. So instead of hoping 3 months ago that I remember to pick up the phone today, which is not going to happen. I promise you, way too much is going on in my life, even if I was sitting around reading Ernest Hemingway all day by
COVID
the
time
pool.
just totally screws everything up,
just
right?
totally get out the door, right? Now I'm managing, a kid at home, homeschool, all the things. So instead of that, let your CRM be your manager, so to speak. Let it tell you, and every day I do this, and I was doing this morning before we hopped on this call, I open it up and I say, what am I supposed to do today to move my business forward?
Right.
And my CRM can be my project management system to tell me across these 40 people, here are each of the things that you're supposed to be doing today. Here are the 8 phone calls you need to make, the 7 emails, the 4 letters, all of the things that you need to do and how to do them and what template you're supposed to use if you want to get into that level of detail. Yep. So I can run those through, bang, 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 get it all done. I can close up shop early and I don't have to worry about my mind being with my family and also with my business thinking, gosh, did I remember to reach out to that person? Oh, I was supposed to make that phone call.
Or there's a person I was supposed to reach out to. Who was it?
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who was that? Revenue just slips out of the door of every business and every salesperson's office that does not effectively leverage a CRM.
Right.
It does not have to be complicated, but it does have to be used.
Right. Well, and of course, the cool thing about a CRM is that it has the other functions. I mean, I'm sure you talk with a lot of people who's, well, I keep track of that on Excel. I keep track of that in a Word document. Okay, at least they're writing it down, and so that's
better
a
than
benefit.
Not, yeah.
But the CRM, depending on obviously again what level you have and things like that, you might not be personally following up in 3 months. You might already have that automated. So in 3 months, they get an email. They're not going to get a phone call, but they get an email that says, hey, Shawn, we met 3 months ago. And obviously, depending on the level of sophistication, it's probably going to be more generic. So it's going to, it's just saying, getting, thinking about you again, wanting to follow up, things like that. But the CRM is, it does it based on the dates that you put in there, and so it can be, okay, it sends them a 3-month reminder email. And you can tie the CRMs into email platforms too, and so, and of course, what we're trying to get through to people is when you have all these processes down and automated, all those various things, it frees you up. Does it take time at the start to set up? Sure. But ultimately it frees you up, to do the things that you got into business to do.
Yeah, and I'll walk you through a little bit how I stumbled into this because nobody taught me the value of a CRM. I wasn't working as a
they just tell you should do this, and you think, oh, that sounds hard.
Yeah, it sounds awful. Actually, I have no idea what I'm doing. It's like trying to play a video game, on a modern console. I mean, I got to go back to like Nintendo and Atari to begin to even remember video games. And now there's all kinds of weird stuff. I see that, and, people are live streaming around the world with their friends.
Or
it's
dang
overwhelming. I don't even
goggles
want to get involved. Goggles, yeah. No, thank you. So when it came time for me to really decide, am I going to stay in business or not? I was trying everything in the world, going to every in-person networking event, speaking at every civic organization I could get in front of, trying to figure out, okay, how do I become an online course creator? How do I write a book? How do I give speeches? How do I do all the things that I need to do to get the word out about the services I have? And when revenue did show up, it was very sporadic. I had no way to track it back to what the actual source was so that I could do more of that. Like the proverbial, monkey in the cage in the experiment, like how do I hit more of that button to get more sweets, dumped on me? Couldn't figure it out. And so running out of money, mortgages due every month, but the revenue wasn't coming in on a regular basis. I said, I have to do something different or I'm really going to run out of money here. I'm going to have to go back to a corporate job. I realized, well, Shawn, if you were going to consult yourself based upon the men and women that you got to study, what would you tell yourself to do if you could be your own consultant? And it was, well, Shawn, do something consistently. And that way you'll know if you get results with it, do more of that. Or if you don't get results, then at least those steps in that order don't work.
Right.
So I came up with a very simple outbound prospecting plan. Make a phone call, send a LinkedIn message, send a letter, you make a phone call, send an email, whatever steps in whatever order you want to put them in. And I identified prospects who I know I could do great business with. And I just ran the system on those. Now, because I was doing something consistently and letting something outside my head manage this, i.e. it was in a CRM, I didn't have to think about what the next step was on any of these people. I just let the CRM tell me.
Right.
I probably made 50 grand and inside the first year with just this one system.
Wow.
Just in gross sales. And I realized, wow, those 5 steps I was using or whatever it was, what if I made those better? What are the steps that are really getting me better conversion? Let's do more of that. And because I had a system in place, I could make small tweaks in that system to get better results. So in the 3rd or 4th year, now I'm making multiple 6 figures in my business, never having to remember who I'm supposed to reach out to next or what I'm supposed to be asking them because all of that stuff was already captured in a system. So all I had to do was execute the system, be present, and we can definitely dive into this, make sure that I was iterating the system. So make sure that every week I'm taking the time, and I do this with a team now. I'm happy to walk you through what it looks like, but every single week, we actually take the time to break stuff and make it better.
Right.
So I ask my people, my team members, bring me challenges that you've encountered throughout the week. You couldn't log into the platform because you forgot your password. A prospect gave you this objection. You didn't know what to say. All the things that they capture that would normally be stumbling blocks or speed bumps. And we work through how do we either
because if it happens to one, it happens to somebody else.
Oh, happens to everybody. I guarantee it. But how many leaders are putting out the same fires from different people every week? That the same fire is showing up on your desk. You just got to solve it for Sally. Now I got to solve it for Jim. Same fire showing up. Well, let's take the matchbook away from these folks.
Let's get rid of the fire.
Let's get rid of the fire. Yeah, and then that means either creating a system to prevent that problem from happening, or updating a system that you have in place to allow for that, eventuality of that problem maybe occur again. So, let's take objections, for instance, because we've got to break this down at the tactical level. I know it's very cerebral otherwise. So if a prospect gives you an objection like, hey, I just don't have enough money right now. Well, I guarantee it's not the first time you heard it, and it won't be the last. So you better come up with something. And you may not be able to turn them around on one call and get them to hand over money, but you need to have something in your back pocket that is consistent and that works. So what does that look like? Well, maybe a turnaround script. What am I supposed to say, or what is the question I'm supposed to ask if I hear that objection? Right. And then every week, track. All right, I used it with Jim and it worked, but I used it with 3 other people and it didn't work. Or I wasn't able to get, the next step of the sales process down. What do I need to do to tweak my answer now, or tweak my next series of questions from that objection? By doing that every week, because I promise you, no one else in your industry is doing this. This is cutting edge stuff. Only the people that I've really been able to coach in it are actively doing this. So if you're hearing this on Ted's podcast or your live stream on your YouTube, this is the first time you're hearing it. So it's magic. I'm giving you pixie dust to throw on your business to make it fly. Okay. But by doing this every week, by getting better in a systemized way, you can spin laps around your competition, because they're still hoping they remember what worked 10 years ago when this situation might have come up in the past. Right.
And one of the biggest things that you talked about that I think is so important is we need to figure out what doesn't work. We can't keep doing the same things and hoping that they work. We were talking before the program about networking. And, I have not been to an in-person networking event, and, probably pretty much whenever we listen to this program or watch it for about the next year from recording it, the answer is going to be the same. I have not attended an in-person networking event since February of 2020. Now, I miss seeing those people. They're fabulous people. They're friends of mine. But I was going to those meetings once a week at least, sometimes more, all of those various things. And I can count on one hand the amount of business that I actually got from those networking meetings. So now, great programs, which is part of the reason why you do networking too, is, you're learning, all of those things. And so that is, a little bit different part, but to actually get business, I wasn't doing it. So then I have to look back and think, why? Was I just going and chatting with my friends? Sure. Was I all of it, was I going for the program? Okay. That works. Now we've got some really good caterers here. So, that's always a benefit. But what I really came down to was the people who were there, fabulous though they aren't the right people for what I do. And so, all of the benefits get, completely, taken over by the fact that it was not the right place for me to be. Online networking has been fabulous for me. The pandemic has been, one of the benefits of that has been that I've done so much more online networking. So, that just kind of goes into there is what works, what doesn't work, and how do we make it better?
Yeah, and let's talk about networking for a minute, because that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, as we begin to reopen society,
we go to everything we possibly can, right?
And like you said, a lot of it massive waste of time. And so we've got to do with the mindset situation first, and then we'll start to dig into what to do differently. So the mindset of networking is rarely, I'm hoping to meet a bunch of my future clients in this room. Right. So networking, you think of the word network, it's because you might know somebody who might know somebody who could refer me to my ideal client. Well, what you're doing in that instance, if that's your strategy with networking, is you are placing your business in the hands of somebody else that's not as invested as you, that doesn't have the passion for it that you do. Honestly, doesn't care if your family can eat next month.
Right.
I mean, they might be good humans, but they're worried about their family. So instead of doing that, instead of basically relying on hope, in that I hope that you refer
I
me to
hope I
somebody
meet
who
the
refers
right
me to
people.
somebody.
I hope they refer me.
Yeah. Instead, and I'll give everybody a way to access this when we get to the tail end. Instead, we use what the military does in developing intelligence dossiers for high value targets. So let's walk through this process. So we're in Iraq in 2004. Battles of Fallujah and Ramadi are raging heavily. And we know that there are a couple people in those cities that are the real bad dudes and bad gals. Mostly they're bad dudes because it's, it's a
Middle
jihadist
East
culture, right? Middle East, yeah. So, the really, really evil people that are doing horrible things to their own populace. Well, we need to figure out where they're going to be and when, so that we can capture them, debrief them for intelligence, or basically remove them from the planet if they're really that awful. Okay. But we can't do that by just wandering down the street and calling out their names and hoping that they show up, or hoping that somebody knows them. Yeah, this is just not going to work. So what we had to do was develop a profile. Where is this person usually located? Who are their family members? Who are the people in their network? So that we might be in ancillary contact with them. If we're around those people, chances are this person might be there as well. What are their favorite places to eat, to hang out? Who do they do business with? Who do they get their supplies from? We build all of this out in order just to get to one person. But that one person, once we locate them, allows us to push our mission forward by leaps and bounds.
Right.
As opposed to just wandering down the street yelling their name at the top of our lungs. And so you think about, how do you apply this in the world of prospecting? And networking can be prospecting, but I want you to develop an intelligence dossiers on your ideal prospect, so that when you walk into these situations, or you start doing research online and companies in your area or companies that meet that profile, you'll have a better idea and be able to get much more successful. So the first thing you want to ask is, one, who are the people that have either bought something like what I sell in the past, or have bought what I sell in the past? So some of you out there are selling widgets that are brand new to the market. You own the patent. Nobody's bought anything like this in the past. Well, who's bought something similar? Who is what is the industry that has the greatest known need for what you have? If you get things done more efficiently or safer, whatever that is. Who's going to be the lowest hanging fruit, so you don't have to convince them of the value of what it is you sell?
They already know they need it.
They already know it, right? But maybe you're selling something that you have competition, right? Maybe not in your area, but there's another company across the country that also sells something very similar. Maybe you've licensed a product that is exactly the same as a lot of people have, but you own the license for your area, the franchise, or whatever it is. Well, in that case, who is already buying from your competitors? If you can determine one of those two things, now you can walk in not asking, hey, would you like to buy my stuff? Because that's a conversation that is a really hard hill to climb. That's like wandering down the street in the middle of Fallujah and yelling people's names at the top of your lungs. Not only will you not find the people you're looking for, you might get hurt in the process. Okay. Instead, have a little bit of intelligence about the people you're reaching out to. Have they bought something like what I sell, or the exact thing that I sell in the past? They're ready for a renewal. They're ready for an update. And then from there, what are their names? What's their contact information? What's their LinkedIn profile URL? I mean, build an intelligence dossier out on these folks, so that when you get that loaded in your CRM, now every day of the week or once a month or however often you want to reach out to these folks, all the information is there. And instead of reaching out with, hey, would you like to buy some of this thing you've never heard of and don't see the value in, I can ask for Deb by name. I can send you an email directly to your email address. I can call you on your direct line. And I can have an intelligent business conversation because I know the name of your company, how many employees you have, how much revenue you might have earned last year if you're publicly traded. And there's so much work that you can do to build great intelligence on your prospects that I don't need to network in person anymore either. Because I can reach out to 10 people inside of an hour, or I can go to one event in the same amount of time, maybe meet 4 people that might have people in their ancillary network that might someday do business with me. So your choices are certainty, taking the initiative on your own, or hope. And of course, from this conversation, which of those camps I fall in.
Right. And there is no excuse for people to go into things unprepared, or to send communications, with it's there. All of the information is there. I love it on LinkedIn when somebody sends me a request to connect. And now I am getting more and more picky about who and if they just send me a request to connect, I've got a statement that goes back to them that says, tell me why. I mean, it's a little bit more detailed than that, but
Yeah.
and I then, will base it on, okay, this was, somebody who had an intelligent response or they never bothered to respond. Well, then I'm not going to
Right.
connect. But what drives me nuts is when I get the next communication from them and they say things like, let us teach you how to do social media. And my response is usually, now I'm polite about it, but my response is usually, maybe you should read my profile.
Right. It's kind of what I do.
Yeah, it's kind of like right there in the thing. It talks about, I'm a LinkedIn strategist. It's in my headline, and so and then you usually you get the crickets, right? But to be able to contact a specific person and know about. Now, you might not be able to find some of the specifics, but you can get some pretty great information just on a quick Google search about companies to be able to say, hey, I know that you are the leading provider in Georgia of X service, or, and I tell you what, that impresses people because most other people have not taken the time to spend the 10 minutes, learning about somebody, maybe they go to you and they say, hey, Shawn, oh my gosh, I read some of your articles in the Atlanta Business Journal. Actually, it's called something different, but Denver Business Journal. And then if they say something specific about one of those articles, that's even better.
Now you have my attention.
Right. And it didn't take that much time, but if they come to you and they say, hey, Shawn, we want to talk to you about how we can help you do X. And you're like, yeah, whatever. But because I want to know that somebody's taken the time to do a little bit of research about me in order to have a great conversation. Otherwise it is a waste of time.
Yeah, the difference is in mindset and thinking about most salespeople prospect like they're a machine gunner. So we'll bring back to the military again. I've got 500 rounds in a box attached to my gun, and I'm just going to spray and pray is what we call it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now, I do the shot. I talk about the shotgun approach. You use a shotgun and hope you get that
might
fly.
Hit something. Yeah, you might not. Like nobody really knows, but you better have a lot of ammo and a lot of time to shoot. Or you could take the sniper approach. Now, snipers, because I was able to go out and in bed with these folks, they lay in wait for days on end sometimes without moving a muscle. I mean, they don't even get up to use the bathroom. That's how committed they are to not moving. And they're waiting for one shot to show up with one target, often up to a mile or more away.
Snipers are just
can change
phenomenal.
the course of a war, just that one shot. And so you and your business, instead of spraying and praying and going to every network event that you possibly can and hoping you meet the right people, and I'm not making fun of anybody for doing that, by the way, because I made that mistake.
And that is how we make some great friends, that's
great friends. People that, lovely individuals I still maintain contact with today. But the idea in my business is, hey, if I'm devoting time away from my family, from the people I love, to focus on my business, to build them a better quality of life, I have to maximize the use of that time. And that doesn't mean picking up the phone with people that may have never heard of what I do or see any value in it. No. Because there's millions of people on the planet, hundreds of millions of people just in the United States. Not everybody's a great prospect. I want to find out who is a great prospect by geography or by industry or whatever delineating factors you want to use. Those are the people I want to spend time with and focused on. And that way, at the end of the day, I know at least I did everything I could, made a quality effort to get in touch with the people who understand the value I can provide. Instead of, I called 300 people and left 299 messages.
Right. And I come at this from a marketing perspective because I'm a marketing person, but it's the exact same thing. I love it when I ask someone, who is your perfect target market? And they look at me and they smile sweetly and they say, everyone. And I say, everyone. It's really not. Because for anything, I don't think there is a product that 100% of people would want. It doesn't matter what it is. There's Starbucks doesn't do that. Walmart doesn't do that. Mercedes-Benz doesn't do that. Whatever it is, they know who they're trying to reach. And so we tell people you have to figure out who your avatar is, what is their age, what, and we tell people, get really detailed. We want to know what their likes are. I do a lot of time, spend a lot of time on social media. And so we figure out, okay, what time are they online? Now, that's kind of a moving target anymore, especially because of COVID. People, it's no longer, well, I have a 15-minute lunch break. It's, but what's their income? What's their age? What's their sex? All of these various things, because then when I write a marketing message and somebody looks at that and goes, ooh, she's talking to me. That's the key. Or it could be, oh my gosh, she's talking about my friend, my, whoever. So I'm going to pass this message on. But the more specific we get, the more likely that we will have great results.
100%. And something that a lot of salespeople make the mistake in when they attempt to build systems in their selling is they take a lot of generic templates. That they think that they can Infusionsoft their way to success. And so in case you're unfamiliar with Infusionsoft, it's a very expensive platform that does great automated email marketing. But I'm a firm believer that if we're going to reach out to people, we should really reach out to them, right? And an email is only one of many ways to do that. We could talk about the value of omni-channel communication if you like, but what I want to do is customize it all. And that doesn't mean rewriting it from scratch. There's a difference. So in my voicemail messages, which I definitely systemize, because I don't want to have to, get a bunch of return calls and wonder, wow, was I on a lot of espresso that day and I was really excited in my voicemail messages? No, I want to know what I said that got the return calls. Or if I don't get a lot of return calls, I need to change something. Again, if you're not doing something consistently, you have no idea what to change. So even in my voicemails, systemize to them, their name, their company, their business, their industry, if you cross industry. In my emails, I'm referring to them, their company, their location. I have a couple of different places inside of all of my email templates where I have to physically go in and change those words for that individual I'm sending it to. But instead of spending 15 or 20 minutes writing a great email, I spend 1.5 minutes customizing a great email, getting it out the door, moving on to the next thing.
Yep. Well, and we've all received the emails, whether it's, through LinkedIn, whether it's a true email, all those things. Dear first name here.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like,
great job with the merch field.
Yeah. And so, but yeah, I mean, to customize it, and then you can always add the little, a sentence. It was great seeing you last week at, all those things. And I tell people, do that because we all have the attention span of a gnat. And we have a memory that's probably even smaller. But if you remind me that I met you at, or we talked, all these various things, then I go, oh yeah. I remember I talked to Shawn last month or last year or whatever, then I can go forward from that. But if it's just this generic thing, it doesn't catch my attention, because we get so many generic communications every day that, we weed them out very, very quickly, and we miss the important ones. Let's be honest.
And that's why I feel like for LinkedIn, and you probably would agree with me, the entire purpose of a great LinkedIn outreach and marketing strategy is to drive a meeting. And that meeting doesn't happen in a LinkedIn chat. It happens on the phone or in person or via Zoom. And so I think to myself, and this is really going back to that military analogy again, if my mission objective is to get this person into a meeting, and I can do that more quickly with one action, why would I take 50 actions to achieve the same result in 10 times the amount of time? So what I mean by that, a lot of people are afraid of getting on the phone because they're afraid of getting rejected. Well, let's break this down time-wise. If you only communicate via email and you're selling something that's a high value, high price item, maybe it takes you 10 months through email to ascertain, is this a decision maker? What is your budget? What, strategic outcomes are you looking for? All of those things. That might be a 10-month conversation via email, or it could be a 2.5-minute conversation on the phone.
Right.
That's the difference, right? And so instead of hoping that they get back to you via email or find the time, or that you don't end up in spam, pick up the phone first, always first, because if you can find out in 2.5 minutes, I'm happy to spend the next 10 years pursuing you. If it's going to be a multiple six-figure contract, that sales cycle doesn't bother me, but I need to know that you're in the game and you're one of my ideal prospects, instead of 10 months of email unresponsiveness. And then I find out, oh, Shawn, that was never me to begin with. Don't waste your time doing that, please, because I've wasted plenty of time learning that lesson.
Oh yeah. And then of course the key is to immediately make those notes in your CRM, because say you made 10 calls in a day and you didn't write, maybe you took a little shorthand notes, things like that. But if you're, several hours later or days, trying to go back, remembering. You're like, oh, but yeah, so take the time to immediately, put that in there, and now you can go back and flesh it out, but do that. And especially things like when we've gone to when we used to do trade shows, right, and things like that, we get the stack of business cards, and a week later maybe we'd go back through and maybe kind of remember what there are much better ways to be doing all of this, but again, okay, you got 50 business cards. Okay, you look through and you go, okay, 25 of these were nice, but so they just go in the trash can, or you might put them in a database to follow up with them, but yeah, go through and sort back through very quickly. And again, we just don't, there's so much going on in our brains that the sooner we do it, the more likely it'll be successful.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned what to do with those prospects. So this is another great question that salespeople struggle with. And as an entrepreneur, you are a salesperson. Congratulations. I'm talking about you too.
Yes. You can make faces at sales all you want, but you're in sales.
You're in sales, especially if you're by yourself. So there are 3 places we find that prospects will leak away from a business.
Okay.
And a prospect, let's define what that is, because, the prospect, a lead, what is the difference? Well, prospect is somebody that likely could be a customer. That could cut a check for what you do today and get a lot of value out of it. A lead is just a name. It's one of those 50 business cards. But if I look at those 50 business cards and I say, all right, 25 of these have the job title of the people that I normally sell to or that I want to sell to, now you're a prospect.
Yes.
Well, there are 3 places that prospect could disappear without you even knowing about it. The first place is before you even get started with your outreach. And so the way to shore up that gap in your pipeline, and we can talk about the difference between pipeline and funnels. A funnel is a way to invite prospect attrition, but a pipeline will keep people in play. The first place someone will leak out of your pipeline is because you don't even reach out the first time. So the very first thing that I advise any entrepreneur, business owner, salesperson do is once you get a prospect, get it into a CRM, and then put a task on there that has a date tied to it, that puts that name back in front of you. It could be a week, 3 months, 3 years, 10 years from now. I don't care, but get a task in front of you so that it does come back through your view screen again, because otherwise you will forget about it. It's just living in there. That's the first place. Second place is in the middle of your outreach sequence. So maybe you're just doing it willy-nilly, making a phone call, sending an email, sending a LinkedIn message. Well, if you don't have a next step that, again, will bring that name back in front of you, and you send that LinkedIn message, but that's the last thing that you do, if you start to do this at scale, you're managing dozens or hundreds of people, good luck getting that name back in front of you again, because it's probably going to float off into the ether. They're going to buy from somebody else. That's the second place. Final place is at the end of your sequence. If you have a sequence, 10 steps that involve email and phone calls and voicemails and direct letters, because this is a high value prospect. I mean, they run a multinational company. They have the job title. You went to the same college. Like, there's no reason this person shouldn't do business with you.
Right.
At the end of that sequence, if you don't have somewhere to put them next, whether that's on a nurture campaign or, another campaign that, I couldn't get in touch with you the first time, so here's my next series of outreach steps, they'll disappear. And so if you can shore up those 3 gaps, you can keep prospects in play indefinitely, so that even if they buy from somebody this year and they're not going to need what you sell for another 5 years, they'll come back in front of you in 5 years, where I promise they'll be much more open and engaging, especially if you've been tracking them, studying them, adding value along the way.
Right. And you just mentioned something so important. That's adding value, and because I think that's the thing that so many times we see and we fear, but we see, we say, use the analogy of a used car salesman. Well, let's snake oil salesman, because I just bought a new car, but yeah, it's we should not be just sell, buy for me. It's that added value piece. So talk to us more about how we do that as part of the sales process.
So I think the first place a lot of business people drop the ball on value is that they spend way too much time either talking about themselves or their product and service.
Right.
And so a really basic exercise I advise anybody walk through: get yourself a sheet of paper, map it into 3 columns. So just 3 columns on one sheet of paper. On the first column, write down everything that you would respond with if somebody said, hey, tell me who you are and what you do. And so in my world, if I was going to do this for me, I'd say, well, I'm a former war correspondent. I'm a TEDx speaker. I do consulting, training, keynotes. I've got books. I've got a podcast. I've got all the things that I do. Well, that's in column 1.
Right.
And you could really fill that up because it's, it's your education, it's your background, your experience, all the cool things you've done in your life. A lot of salespeople spend all their time, especially if they're the product or service, they spend their time in that column.
Right.
Next column number 2, how do you transmit all of that value? Through your widget, through your podcast, through your talks, through your books, through your coaching, consulting, training, online courses, whatever that looks like. That goes in column 2. Salespeople sometimes make the mistake when they get asked the question, hey, who are you and what do you do? I'm a speaker, or I am a consultant, or I'm a trainer, or hey, I sell widgets. Nobody cares unless they already know what the value is. But in the third column, this is where the value lives. It's where the money lives in your business too. The question to ask in the third column is, what is the changed client state, personally and professionally, if they can leverage all of the things in column 1 and in column 2? So if they buy my widget and they actually use it as it's intended to be used, in the amount of time it's intended to be used in, they really, take your advice and use this thing, how is their personal and professional life better? And you can fill column 3 up with dozens of items. Maybe it allows them to, open up a community center because that's what one of their competitors did with the extra dollars they had in their company because of all the saved revenue. You really map this out. And if you talk to the things in column 3 in your conversations, your email, your LinkedIn messaging, your direct mail, even the stories that you can tell out of column 3, how is your life going to be better off personally and professionally? Well, the widget that you sell is just the bridge, and its value goes up increasingly with the amount of money, time, energy that you can impact my life with. So you could take something that might cost you $10 to produce and sell it for 100 times that if you can get me 1,000 times return. But you can't walk that chain backwards unless you understand. And you can ask yourself this, you can ask past clients this, ask your peers in your industry that also sell things like you sell. How are our folks better off for buying what it is we do? And don't let yourself settle for words like better engagement or more efficiency or even more profitability. Those are really generic terms. It's what do you do as the result of those things? You talk to those items, you can come up with an infinite amount of value that you can provide to your prospect along the way for them becoming a customer.
Right. And just keep asking those questions. You mentioned, you might say, well, we can get better profitability. How? I mean, it's kind of like we have to become the 3-year-old. Why?
Why is that important? Why do I care?
And just keep going until you get down to, the true meat and potatoes of what it is. Because everybody else, like we said, they're all at that high level of, we can help you become more profitable. Okay. and if I ask them why or how, and they just kind of giggle or look uncomfortable, then, or don't respond, I like those too. Then I'm not going to deal with them.
And that question you asked about, how are you going to make me more profitable? So I've encountered, because I've tracked the results of more than 11,000 sales calls, I've encountered just about every type of human being on the planet. And the best answer I heard to that question was really phrased this way. It said, Shawn, you're going to make me more profitable. I'm losing money talking to you. How are you going to help me get it back? And
that's
I
a
have
great
an answer
question.
for that, right? I had it because you're wasting the time. If you're really wasting the time of very important people, if you're selling to the C-suite or people that have a lot of responsibilities, even if it's just to manage a household, maybe you're just selling to the housewife or the house dad. Great. You better be adding value to their lives. And so the thing that and this really gets back to mindset. So it's great that we're circling back. All of the content we've covered really comes back to mindset. It's because I understand the value that I provide in the lives of my clients that I can have the audacity to interrupt my prospects. Okay. And what
because
I mean by that,
you can make it worth their time.
I know I can make it worth their time. I know I can make a difference. And so even because I hear this all the time, because I love the phone, of course. So I'm calling people, Shawn, I can only talk for a second. I'm about to step into a meeting, or Shawn, I just stepped out of a meeting. I really have to go to the bathroom. I've been holding it for 3 hours. Like, what do you have in 10 seconds or less? I hear that a lot, believe it or not. And so I have to believe in what I do more than their faith that the next thing on their agenda is going to be that important. And so I stopped short of like, I'm about to step into my daughter's dance recital. Like, what do you need? I'm not going to try to stop a dad from doing that or a mom from doing that, because I have a little girl, right?
Then
I
you
wouldn't want that to
say,
happen to me.
when can I call you back?
I'll call you back later. Yeah, exactly. But short of that, I get that you're busy. I need to share this with you and a couple of questions just to make sure you're even the right person. and then we can go from there.
Mhm.
You can decide in 30 seconds or
Mhm.
less, am I worth keeping on the phone?
Right.
And if the answer is no, I would rather hear that sooner, to be honest with you,
Right.
because I got 50 people behind
Mhm.
you that are
Mhm.
qualified that I can provide value to. So if
And
this
they'll
isn't the right
appreciate
fit,
that too.
I gotta go.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I
totally.
love
Yeah,
that
'cause
audacity
they
to
know.
interrupt. Ooh, that
Yeah.
was very cool. I love that because we do, if you're having the audacity to interrupt, you had better have a darn good reason why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if they say no, not interested, that's it. And if you don't keep pushing, that's the trick. I mean, like we had somebody that, rang the doorbell, a couple weeks ago. I go down and he's with a company who's putting on a roof at one of my neighbors. Now he had been trained well. He knew, and he had someone with him. So, he was showing her how to do this. And so it wasn't a roof, it was windows, because he said, I see that the window up there, the seal is broken. So I must have had, some condensation in there. So he immediately pointed out, oh my gosh, there's a problem, and all of this, but it was, he said, we're here in the neighborhood just for today. Now he had interrupted me. He had the audacity to interrupt. And so, but the problem was he didn't take no for an answer, because I said, I can't talk to you right now. If you can leave your information, we'll give you a call later. And no, he didn't like that. I mean, he just kept pushing, and he pushed to the point that he annoyed me. And more importantly, he pushed to the point where I thought, I will not use you. And I mean, he had his script down. I mean, he had everything, but, he didn't recognize my body language was basically it. When I took the step back and when I started to close the door. Now, he certainly didn't do anything like reach for the door or anything like that. But
right.
He did not recognize that I had closed that discussion, but I was being too polite to not say go away. But yeah, I mean, he pushed to the point where I thought, not going to work with these folks. And I think that's what we're all afraid of.
Here's what I do, because I know we're oh yeah, we're wrapping up the episode. So I'll give you this turnaround really quickly. The thing that I do if somebody doesn't have the time to talk with me is I say, great, if it's worth us having a conversation and you've indicated that, you're going to call me later, let's get that on the calendar.
Yes.
Because I don't want to lose track of you, and I will if I step away from here and I just, I remember we're supposed to get in contact. Well, I got 50 people I'm supposed to visit today too. So get that on the calendar, and that way you have the permission to get back in touch with this person to discuss it. It may not be the right fit then either, but at least then there is a follow-up step.
Yeah. Yeah. If he had, when I said, I can't do it today, that's exactly what he should have done. He should have said, when can we come back? Can we leave our information? Something, but it was just, no, it's got to be today. It's got to be today. And I'm like, no, it doesn't. And then he made the key mistake. Is your husband home?
Oh, nice. You must not be the decision maker because of your gender. So is the man of the house here. Yeah, that worked well, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, but cool. Well, Shawn, we really could go on because there's so many things. We didn't talk about your acronym TRIM. And I love that. I thought that was very cool. So we're not even going to tell people about it because we want them to get your book. So show me the book again. Yep. You've got it there. You have to be Vanna. So it is Bulletproof Selling, Systematizing Sales for the Battlefield of Business. And, so, we will have a link to it in the show notes, but in that, tell us how people connect with you and the services that you do provide.
For sure. So I'll say, everybody, as soon as you possibly can, get over to bulletproof-selling.com, bulletproof-selling.com. And on the really front page, when you land there, there's going to be a floating box that says, take your 5-minute sales assessment. No matter the size of your business or the size of your goals, run through that thing, because it doesn't take more than 5 minutes. But what it allows you to do is determine, where is the one place in my sales cycle I'm most in need of systems. And once you determine that, I will give you that system. We've identified 62 different places in any sales cycle where most people tend to struggle, develop systems for each of them. I'll turn it over to you. That'll also give you a way to take a look at the inside of our book, which just released this year, Bulletproof Selling. The second thing I'll say is that we do have consulting. We've got training. I get to keynote all over the world for sales and sales kickoffs. But what it really comes down to is the work that we do with other sales leaders, which we release every single day of the week over at bulletproofselling.com. We interview top sales VPs. We build sales systems, which is where the TRIM acronym came from. And we have a podcast there that drops every Monday as well. So if you're interested in improving sales, thinking like this, like how do I remove hope from my sales strategy? Bulletproof-selling.com is the place to be.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, this really has been a fascinating discussion, and I can't wait to have you on the program again to continue this. But until then, do you have any final words of wisdom for everyone?
Yeah, sales is scary if you're not familiar with what you're doing, but so is anything else in life. Think about the things that you love doing the most that would terrify a beginner. Well, sales is no different. Learn a couple of basics along the way, a couple of easy steps, get better at those steps, continue to improve, and pretty soon you'll be the one teaching others in your industry how to sell.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having just the best conversation with Shawn Rhodes of Bulletproof Selling. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.